Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're escaping from prison.
That's actually right for a change, Johnny. We are, escaping from a prison. Libby prison, in fact, down in Richmond, Virginia, which was one of the most successful prison escapes during the war, where over 100 Union officers escape out of Libby prison there.
What?
Yeah.
100?
Yeah, over 109 to be specific are going to escape. Although some of them are going to get recaptured, but some of them make it back. And it's a 50-50 shot. But anyways.
Okay, but 109 people made it outside of a prison facility that they were being held in. That's significant and
this story is a fun-filled circus full of jokes and incompetencies across the board.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Yeah, weird.
So, background. At the start of the war, a man by the name of Luther...
Which war?
The Civil War. The one that we're dressed for, Johnny. It's the only war
Oh, they don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only war that we're really talking
about. They might not know that.
I mean,
that's not true.
I got a bunch of different... But it's the one that we significantly talk about. In
any
case...
That started the Civil War.
Back before the... at the start of the Civil War... A man by the name of Luther Libby was running a ship supply shop out of a warehouse in Richmond. Rebels, being the rebels and really respecting people's private properties, they go ahead and seize that warehouse because they need a prison. They're like, guess what?
Yep.
It's ours now. You got 48 hours to vacate and get the fuck out because we want this building.
Well, I mean,
fuck your employment.
Nice to live in a free country, you know?
The hell with your job and your business.
That's the price that they pay for.
Which they might want to have kept going because, wasn't a lot of ships that the dirty rebels had towards the end of the war.
You say seize his ships and his
well,
building?
It's no, he was a ship, like the supply shop for ships, so it's not like he made the ships, but maybe if he had that supply shop for the ships, those ships could have stayed afloat longer.
They could have repaired them, yeah.
Yeah. In any case, Confederates felt that this warehouse was inescapable, so they understaffed it, never really paid any attention to the prisoners inside.
It's a warehouse. No. It wasn't built as a prison.
No, it sure wasn't. No.
It's a warehouse, which is it's just a big box building, right?
Yeah, it's a big box building with a big wall around the big box building.
Lights,
that was
like windows up top or whatever, but not down low, probably. Two doors, maybe, something like that. Like,
I'll paint the picture of the layout for you. It's a 3-story building with a basement, but the basement is exposed to the riverside, so it's like one of those walkout.
So it's like a walkout basement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
That's a nice feature to have if you're selling a house.
That is a nice feature to have if you're selling a house. Although those tri-levels, there's a lot of people for a while that didn't like the tri-level houses, and now they're like, no, tri-levels are awesome. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Real estate's weird and stupid. The north end of the complex, it's actually a city block wide in Richmond. The north end connects to Carey Street, which is what connects it to the rest of the city. So it's kind of isolated, one-ish way in.
Well, I mean, it's a block in and of itself, so it can't be just smack dab in the center of the city. It's going to be on the outskirts.
Yeah. That's pretty much walled off with a big, large 3-story building plus basement inside. The warehouse, the first floor was pretty much used for office complexes for the Confederate soldiers, the guards, the sentries, all them. It was their headquarters, basically, so to speak.
Okay.
Second and third floor, they were utilized for prisoner holding cells. They were converted, and they made
that's why they were inescapable, because they were on the second and third floor. So
yeah.
How could they ever get out?
The first floor was whitewashed, so that way at night, anybody who was lurking outside the prison could easily be seen.
Or all our history has been whitewashed.
That was the plan. And down in the basement, it was separated into 3 areas. The west end being a cellar storage. The center being used for carpenter's shop, which civilians had access to, so the civilians would come in and use the woodworks there. And then the east end was the kitchen. At the start of the war, the kitchen was used for the prisoners, but as the war progressed, that kitchen slowly got overran by rats and then got abandoned.
Shoot. So what'd they eat?
They had the kitchens elsewhere. They just didn't use that.
They just cooked over fires and shit, or somewhere else.
Yeah, there's all stoves and everything in everybody's rooms and stuff. And it's not like they're getting. I mean, the Confederates didn't have food anyway, so it's not like they're getting any good food. So.
Yeah.
Although this is mostly a prison for officers, like it is substantially officer.
So this is your white collar prison type deal.
Yeah, they're slightly treated a little bit better.
Or what the equivalent of it, I guess, back then. I'm guessing nothing was really nice, but
yeah,
you know,
as close to nice as you can get. Now that kitchen got nicknamed Rat Hell, and the Confederates completely and totally abandoned it and avoided it at all costs, with the majority of the prisoners also abandoning it at all costs.
You close the door and you that
lock it.
And you
exist
anymore.
Leave it be.
Yeah. They'll be fine.
But not our handful of scheming officers, led by Colonel Thomas E. Rose of the 77th Pennsylvania. He gets the idea, hey, nobody's really using the kitchen anymore. Maybe we could start digging a tunnel from the basement out and get out of here. Just dig out and go free. So they gain access to the basement actually by taking out a stove in the offices of the first floor, chip away at the chimney, and then they can gain access to the basement through that chimney without anybody noticing.
Sure. So, yeah.
Knock a hole, go through the chimney, problem solved.
The amount of unsupervised time these folks must have
had a ton of unsupervised time. Yeah, there was a lot of unsupervised time.
Like, no one just walking by.
Nope. Like, hey, what are you guys doing?
If they're removing a stove and hollowing out a chimney.
Yep. Enough time to pass. They get down into the kitchens. The kitchen's floor is actually covered with straw, which provides a perfect place to hide the dirt. Captain Ian...
So they did that, I assume, to mitigate the rat droppings and urine. And
yeah, I have no idea.
They're like, this'll soak it up.
Soak it up. I have no idea why the straw is actually there. It's just the whole floor is covered with it. Captain Ian Johnston, he reports that they would tightly pack the dirt and then cover it with the straw. So they take out the dirt from digging the tunnel, tightly pack it down, cover it back up with straw. In addition to that, it actually offered them a place to hide if they ever got caught. So a couple of times
under the straw.
Yeah. So a couple of times.
How thick was this straw?
Apparently, must have been pretty thick straw.
So they were like bale. It was bales, probably.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, like bales of straw.
They had
down there. So a couple times they were getting close to somebody. Like there's a Confederate that was actually curious and opened up the kitchen doors, or was going down to the basement looking around. And so the whole crew that was working shimmied up the chimney to get up to the first floor, but you have to cover up your tracks to make sure that nobody knows that you're working down there. So they left a guy behind who would clean up the tracks and then hide up underneath the straw, and actually would be there throughout the entirety of the day, waiting for nightfall before he could get it back up and scurry back up the chimney, which is hilarious because clearly they weren't doing head counts if a dude could just be gone for an entire day and nobody questioned it.
This is whose story that we are learning this information through?
These are multiple. These are multiple of the survivors that escaped that have told the story.
All right, because this is some Scooby-Doo stuff here.
This is very Scooby-Doo.
Hiding under hay all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
In an area that's already abandoned and they don't check anyway or don't go down into anyway.
Nope.
And when they do, they don't notice that this hay's been moving all over the place, and now this floor is 4 inches taller. That's weird. I didn't used to hit my head on the ceiling.
And now I got a duck. It is a rather quick tunnel, but we'll get there in a second. So, the straw has a double-edged sword, though. Although it does provide a place to hide, it does provide a place to hide the dirt. The rats love it.
Oh yeah.
And as you're crawling around in that, you got rats that are squealing at you at all times, crawling all over you at all times, biting you. One of the quotes from one of the survivors says that no tongue can tell how poor fellows passed among the squealing rats, enduring the sickening air, the deathly chill, and the horrible, interminable darkness. Because there was no lights down there, and you can't really risk lighting a candle because that could potentially be noticed.
Everything down. Yeah.
So all the work was done at night.
On fire.
So how they dug the tunnels, they actually had 3 digging crews, 5 men each, that worked basically night and day to trade off places. It takes 17 days for them to break through a 50-foot vacant lot on the eastern side of the prison, which actually they surfaced up into a tobacco shed. So a shed that was being used to store tobacco, they actually cracked through into that shed. As they surfaced, Colonel Rose states that the Underground Railroad to God's country was open. And now, Johnny, we got our escape. On the night of February 9th, 1864, in groups of 2 to 3 men, they're going to climb through the tunnel and into the tobacco shed where they gather in a little bit larger groups and then just literally open up the tobacco shed and just
Run.
walk out the fucking gate. That is not manned
just
by anybody.
time to go.
Just walking right out the door. Despite multiple groups of Union officers just strolling through Richmond in the middle of the night, nobody pays them any attention. There are sentries that are patrolling the entirety of Richmond that are supposed to, like, guards.
Yes,
not
no,
prison
century,
guards, but they're...
not century.
Yeah.
Century is 100 years.
No. Sentries. The fucking... like police, basically, but like military police. They're soldiers. And they're like, hey, where are you going? Where's your papers? Those guys. They're supposed to be doing that. But again, the Confederates think the prison is inescapable. They're not paying it enough attention. They're not manning it enough. And so, like, when groups of people are walking around, unless they're not, like, walking around with their Union clothes, they got more civilian-esque clothes on, and they're just walking in the street. Colonel Rose actually
and nobody thought anything of all of a sudden a crowd of 100 people.
Well, they're not. They're in smaller groups. They're in small groups. They're not like all clumping out as a 100-man.
They didn't parade through the city after their escape.
No. But Colonel Rose tells a story about, like, when he was leaving the city, a sentry is like walking right at him, and he just goes, up, just keeps walking, and just, good day to you, sir, and just
act like you're supposed to be there.
And not even a single, like, hey, what are you doing? Because the Confederates at this point, especially the prison guards, were like, that's not my jurisdiction. Outside the walls, I don't got to pay attention to it. That's not right. Anything. So I'm not going to pay attention to it.
They had a job.
They don't do hourly, like, they don't do, like, head counts in the middle of the night. They don't do, like, night count before they go to bed. And, like, there's no, like,
real I'm guessing
structure
these were kid soldiers and not former trained military personnel or, prison guards or whatever, or police officers. Like, it's some 18, 17, 20-year-old kid that you're like, hey, make sure nobody gets out of this inescapable prison that nobody can escape from. And they're like, oh, all right, I can do that. No problem. I'll just sit around here all day, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done.
The Confederates are so oblivious that, like, the entirety of the prison doesn't know this is going on. Like, there are a handful of guys that are in on it, obviously, but, like, it's still a secret. It does get out that there is a tunnel, and it does get out that people are escaping, and then there is a mad rush for the tunnel, and the Confederate guards are like, there's a lot of ruckus going on. And what's going on? But they don't, like, go and investigate.
Well, if it's a fight, you don't want to get involved with that. Then you got sometimes you just let it go.
On the morning of the 10th,
not my job.
The tunnel is discovered and the escape has become clear. But the first prisoners that got out have had over 12 hours to just.
It's a good long time.
And you think, all right, well, they're in enemy territory. So how do they find their way back? Most of these prisoners were actually a part of the Peninsula campaign, and. Like, a part of that campaign, like, they'd had maps of Virginia. They were all through Virginia through the campaign. So it's like they're pretty aware. Plus, geography speaking, Richmond's like a half an hour drive to Washington, D.C. by today's standards. They're pretty damn close to each other. So you can make a Richmond to Washington walk in, like, a day.
They weren't down in Savannah, Georgia, or Little Rock, Arkansas, or anything like that. Like, it was doable. Especially, you get a 12-hour head start.
Yeah,
you're set.
Messages and dispatches go out in all directions. A manhunt is underway. All available soldiers, cavalry, and dragoons are dispatched at around noon, which is now nearly 17 hours after the initial prisoners left. On the 11th, the Richmond...
Of course, they know who they're looking for and all that. They're just looking for somebody who looks like they escaped prison.
Yep. On the 11th, the Richmond Enquirer, the Richmond's newspaper, is going to report that it fears that the officers have had too much time of a head start and was feared that none would be recovered. Like, we're definitely not getting all of them. At this point, it's a success if we get any of them.
Fair, yeah. But they got some, which is kind of impressive.
109 total men escape. A large portion of the prisoners already have known the area. All said and done, 59 are actually going to make their way back to the Union lines. 48 will be recaptured, and 2 are going to drown trying to escape swimming across the Rappahannock, which is not the best river to try to swim across.
Well, especially fully clothed in the
February.
Middle of the night. In
cold.
February. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's going to be... Only 2 dying is actually shocking.
Shocking, yeah. Yeah, and 48 get recaptured. The rest get, make it back to the Union lines, including Colonel Rose. The prison itself is going to be obviously thrown into chaos after this, and revamps to security are done. Clearly, it's not inescapable. Got to plug up that tunnel, and then maybe
Do you think
actually
they just poured rocks down into like the chimney or whatever?
Yeah,
like,
probably. Start doing
we're safe now.
Bed checks. In fact, there was
patrol every once in a while might be helpful.
Yeah, that could be helpful. Lieutenant Colonel Kavanaugh is going to report that one night after the prison escape, which, by the way, all the prisoners, like, their morale went right through the roof. People got out. Hell yeah. Great.
Yeah.
It's also 1864, and the war is going pretty decently for the Union. So, yeah. Lieutenant Colonel Kavanaugh, he does report one night, though, after the escape, that the entire prison was woken up for roll call because a sentry on the outside thought that they saw something in the sewers. Turns out it was just his own shadow that he saw in the sewers.
Well, but you know what? See something, say something. That guard, it was not going to be the one responsible for the second large escape.
A month later, there's actually going to be another attempt by the Union Army itself to create a raid on Richmond to free all the prisoners there in that prison.
A prison break now?
It was a prison break. Yeah, this was a planned prison break, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. In hindsight, Johnny, it's when our old college roommate Kilpatrick goes off to try to, and then he sees that there's actually people that are sort of guarding the city of Richmond. He goes, nope, don't want any part of that. And then he just...
What are you doing, guarding Richmond? That's cool. I'll just leave.
Turns around and goes home. Yeah, with Dalkerin, who's the other guy who doesn't get that memo to turn around and go home, and he gets ambushed and killed, and then they claim that he had orders to assassinate traitor President Davis, which, let's be honest, he probably did. And then his body gets mutilated and put on display.
It's war. We're doing a thing. Is that not okay?
That's fine. We're doing the thing. It's okay. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, that's probably another episode.
They want to kill Lincoln, right?
Raids. Well, I think they do that at the.
So
I don't know. I just started watching.
Why are they so upset?
I just started watching the Manhunt on Apple TV, so I don't know yet if he gets assassinated or not. It's it's like a fucking murder mystery conspiracy show on Apple TV about Lincoln's assassination. It doesn't completely shy away from historical fact, but I don't know. I watched the first episode. Wilkes Booth kills Lincoln.
What?
Surprise! Yeah.
Spoiler.
And that's like the first 5 minutes of the show, Johnny. And then the whole rest of the show apparently is them trying to hunt down John Wilkes Booth, which in real life.
So it's the first 48 Civil War edition.
All that long, huh?
It's the first 48 Civil War edition.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah. So watch that.
All right. Is that?
Yeah, we're done.
Are we doing a promo? Okay, we're not. Don't watch that show. We didn't get paid for that.
We did not get paid for that.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about Johnny Appleseed.